side of the pond.
Yeah, 100%. With the damage output potential, I think it really puts a lock on VMAXs in the meta right now, because not many of those are going to want to go up against it. But we see here a Greninja start and a Zoroark start, and of course there's a lot on both sides that they need to get down, both looking to fill their bench completely for their own reasons. Obviously the Palkia side, they want to get that damage addition for every bench Pokemon. For Zoroark, they need to get damage on every one of those bench Pokemon, otherwise they won't be hitting that big number they need for knockouts.
Yeah, and as we can see, Kevin has started this first round of Warsaw Regionals, and it's very quickly opened with a quick ball, discarding that boss's orders and getting that Oranguru down to his bench. Probably has already very quickly searched through his deck as well, and we're just going to be very quickly just noticing one, just so that everyone can see on the stream back at home, the prizes there. It is just been worked out for us there, as we can see from Zach's side. He has prized 2 Battle VIP Pass, so he's playing that Palkia and Inteleon list with the full 4 in his actual deck. But as you see here, we're continuing through. There's no Oranguru ability there, and it's just a pass over from Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, those Battle VIP Pass could be vital, but obviously there's so many other ways we can get all those bench Pokemon down, and I think right now that's the key to this start here, because that is not a strong-looking turn, first turn from Kevin there, and the first turns are so important in this current meta, especially with the VIP Pass pop-off potential. We start seeing Zach on that deck search. He's going to see not too many vital cards there. Maybe the Choice Belt might be needed to tip over the damage for a fully powered-up Hisuian Zoroark VStar, but other than that, he's going to be pretty happy seeing most of his important pieces there.
Yeah, definitely, and he's opened his Battle VIP Pass there, as Zach has also just searched his deck, got the 2 Pokemon. It looked like it was...
We actually had both.
Yeah, as best as you can get. Who needs the other 3 and 4th Battle VIP Pass there? But he's just going through his deck. He's going to be aiming to get those Sobbles down. We know how this deck works. It's all about getting those Drizzles down and chaining those into that big shady dealings Inteleon. Start picking up your combo pieces. It's one of these matchups where both benches will be likely full, with Zoroark having to try and capitalize on the maximum damage output that he can do with its ticking curse attack, the V-Star of course, but then it just plays into that subspace well as well. But of course Zach going second, just kind of beginning to set up his board there. The double Sobble is down, the Irida gets played as well, all these combo pieces just setting up in hand, grabbing the Capacious Bucket alongside that Drizzle, ready for next turn. It's got Radiant Greninja in the active. I think it's looking very pretty here for Zach's side of the board.
Yeah, near perfect start. We've got an attachment, we've got the bench filling up, we've got Drizzles and Sobbles ready to go. I think right now we don't know if there's a supporter maybe in Kevin's side to kick things off, because he didn't have that in the first turn, obviously going first, didn't get the chance to do that, but we'll see what his plans are. I think just looking from this, it's going to be a pretty tough position to go from when you see a player VIP pass like that and set up the board fully, especially with Palkia and Inteleon.
Definitely there. We just saw the concealed cards ability. We do have the little marker on that active Greninja as well for everyone back at home to notice. There's a Hisuian heavy ball as well, just to double check his prizes, which is fantastic for Zach, of course, but nothing too crazy there to worry about. But it's always good knowledge to have, having already searched his deck multiple times. He knows what's going on as a seasoned player in the tournament, and just throughout so far. So, this is exactly what you want, I believe, from that concealed cards. I think Zach also got a Palkia V-Star into hand as well, so he's pretty much set up for the next turn, ready to start swinging. It'll be really interesting to see how Kevin can react from this. There's the energy attachment as well. But yeah, from Kevin's side of the board, he's going to be looking to try and burst and just start trying to potentially just take knockouts as quick as possible.
Yeah, and here we go. The turn has started. We have the energy attachment. That's one of the many pieces that's going to be needed here. Now it's going to be all about finding a way to hopefully knock out a Palkia here. That would be the dream, to try and get that prize race started. An Ultra Ball to kick things off, and obviously the extra draw power from that V-Star Zoroark can bail you out when things start getting sticky. But we'll see what's going on here. And we're only in round 1 here, so anyone who's tuning in right now, this is round 1 of a long day of SwSh. The start is key to get yourself rolling. You don't want to take too many losses. And there's a lot of good players here, so especially players like Kevin are going to be thinking right now to come up against Zach playing Palkia and Inteleon. There's not many easy matches throughout. And looking at some of the decks we got here, there's not there's not like the gimme rounds, is there?
No, not at all. Because, you know, with the internet now, with such great tools that we have access to, everyone has access to, you know, the full meta game, all the decks that are available online, for everyone to start analyzing themselves. You know, Kevin, I'm sure, playing this Hisuian Zoroark list, maybe was anticipating to face up against some Palkia Inteleon lists as well. But, you know, there will be also other good matchups that he'll be looking to play against. There's the Oranguru ability again, to just quickly check the top card. I think he might be a little bit stuck here. He's obviously wanting to try and limit his bench as much as possible. He doesn't have that Gapejaw Bog stadium down, so doesn't want to be starting to bench Pokemon as well, to try, because he needs to get that damage onto the bench Pokemon to, you know, really sort of trickle up that damage output from that Hisuian Zoroark, and has used that VStar ability there to discard his hand and draw a fresh 7. So it'll be really interesting to see there. From his hand, he does have a boss, but it'll be interesting to see whether he'll be able to find a way of actually just ramping up that damage. Yeah,
lots of ways to dig with this deck. The ability from VStar is one that you don't want to use too soon, because that's definitely a backup plan. But at this stage, it's going to be used early on. And getting that Gengar in the bin now is the aim. So at least there's some damage on the bench that can start being moved around with the damage pumps. This stage, I think it's going to be a real question of, do you bench enough to try and knock out the Palkia with the boss, or do you focus on just getting rid of the Greninja and not putting enough bench down that they can knock out the Zoroark?
I think in this situation, I think there's maybe just, well, we'll come back to that, but just based on your question there, I think he's just going to have to start ramping up a little bit of damage at least. He doesn't want to be wasting that boss on a turn where he's not taking a KO. You know, if he's able to limit his bench now, it does have 270 HP. So being returned by a subspace well from a Palkia V-Star is unlikely in this stage at this moment with just the Oranguru on the bench. But of course, Ticking Curse doesn't do any damage unless there is any Pokemon with damage counters on it. You know, this attack does 50 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. So on the board, that's why he's looking to try and get that Gengar into the discard and using that Netherworld Gate ability to be able to bring it back onto the bench and put 3 damage counters on it itself. So we're just double checking here with the judges, just making sure that everything's all good. It looks like both players are just discussing and just confirming everything. But whilst we're on that, you know, these probably didn't expect Hisuian Zoroark in the first round, but this is really interesting. I'm happy to see it. Like I said, it started to do quite well in international tournaments. It's definitely a pet deck for a lot of people. It does have incredible sort of burst ability with that V-Star ability, with all the other cards as well. And yeah, back to the action. So sorry, I think he's just gone for the Colress, his experiment there, which is a card we've started to see in a lot of combo decks.
Yeah, well, such good draw potential. Seeing 5 cards, and you do have to put 2 in the loss zone, but at this stage, you know exactly what you want, and so putting those cards in the loss zone shouldn't be too much of a miss unless you start hitting 5 amazing cards. So we've seen that looks like a damage pump and a Hisuian Zoroark V there. So backing the damage pump in his hand, I believe, to get the damage around. The question now is, if that damage goes on to the active, that's then 10 closer to being knocked out by the subspace swell. With choice band as well, that starts making it odd numbers. There's a lot to think about here, and that's where we start seeing the high-level players really min-maxing their decision-making, and there's so much maths to do in this matchup. You've got to not only do your maths on your side with the 50 times table plus 30, you've got to look at the opposition side, where there's the subspace well 60 plus 20 for every bench Pokemon. A lot to think about, and the added pressure of being on the feature table, especially this early on. You don't expect your first game when you turn up for Kevin here, I'm going to be on the feature table. So it's definitely going to be feeling the pressure here.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's pressure that both players will be feeling. You know, they're under the lights. They're all eyes are on them for such a big tournament as well. As mentioned, it was over 700 players. And we see Kevin here. It did look like he quick-balled for that Crobat, so he's looking to sort of ramp up that damage. Does get another Zoroark down, which is fantastic from his side. Of course, does have that stadium that I mentioned as well, that Gapejaw Bog down. So whenever a Pokemon hits the bench from your hand, it does put 2 damage counters onto it. And there you go. So there, he's just drawn a few more cards, which is fantastic. And he just having a quick look. He's able to now take the knockout on this active Greninja, of course. it's one thing he needs to start thinking about, and he's holding that damage pump already, potentially maybe just trying to limit the damage on his Zoroarks for that return KO later. Currently, because it's just a Zoroark V, maybe it's a little bit irrelevant for the time being. Just something to consider, because, you know, until it actually evolves to actually get the additional HP, that's when it's going to really start to matter to try and keep that damage counters off the Zoroarks. But he does go with that ticking curse, taking the first prize of our feature match at the Warsaw Regionals.
Yeah, getting that knockout on the Greninja, so it's going to be one prize taken there by Kevin. And the return knockout is what Zach's going to be looking for here. And we mentioned about the numbers, and we see here Subspace Swirl will need 9 bench Pokemon plus a choice belt, and that'll be getting that knockout for the Palkia VStar. Still a lot of stuff to look for, but a way to start it is definitely having access to Shady Dealings through Drizzle and an Irida.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So Zach here will be looking for all of those combo pieces that he's going to be targeting down to really sort of build up all of his damage output. That Subspace Swirl, we've seen it so often since Palkia has released into the format. Of course, has also gone for the Capacious Bucket from, I believe, was that from the Shady Dealings, or was that from the Irida?
I think the Irida got a Drizzle and a Capacious Bucket there.
Of course, there's the second Drizzle, because he got one from his first turn as well.
He had the V-Star in hand as well, so I don't think he needs to look for that. And now he's just going to look to try and get one more bench Pokemon, and I assume the Choice Belt will be coming out here at some point. But we know Zach is a very thoughtful player, and having a deck like this, where you have a lot of thinking, do a lot of decisions to make, it makes it a deck that's more preferable for top players, because they know the routes, they can see the routes earlier, where for newer players going to a tournament, you might think of decks that are a little bit simpler to play, because it helps you maintain that consistent playstyle throughout a long event. So a lot of thinking for Zach throughout the day with this deck.
But again, just, you know, with his experience, he's going to be looking at all the different options that are available to him. You know,
100%.
Shady Dealings just gives everything into the player's hands, because you can start using things like Scoop Up Nets to be able to start chaining the different Shady Dealings. He has different cards within his list, like the Zigzagoon, to be able to, again, also just ramp up the extra ticking damage to be able to sort of reach the numbers that are necessary for the V-Star HP Pokemon and beyond as well. Of course, I don't see anything too crazy. There's also, actually, he does play the Inteleon quick shooting.
Yeah, extra damage modifiers, you know.
Which is something you don't maybe typically see alongside the Zigzagoon. I've seen often players will play one or the other because it's, you know, very similar effect. Of course, with the quick shooting, you're looking to try and do that every turn. But sometimes you want to focus on that Shady Dealings Inteleon, because, you know, it's the core of your deck with just being able to combo. But it looks like here, Zach has just benched that Galarian Zigzagoon as well. Just adding the extra damage. Doesn't need the Choice Belt, of course, because that's the extra Pokemon down and just the extra 10 damage. And Subspace Swells for 2 prizes there. And I think both players are just reconfirming.
Oh, have we seen the numbers? So the Galarian Zigzagoon is just getting the ping onto the active. Oh, I think he's missed the knockout there.
Okay.
So maybe looking to get that one in the future, clean it up with some of the things we spoke about, like a Zigzagoon, and once the full Inteleon with the quick shooting can come out, that's where that can be cleaned up. But for now, has remained in the active. I wonder if that was intentional or whether that was a misjudgment. It's so hard at this stage. Again, like the players warm up throughout the day, right? You can sometimes miscalculate your numbers, but we can only assume Zach has a plan later on to clean that up. So for now, that Hisuian Zoroark V-Star is going to be staying in the active.
Definitely. I guess with only one Choice Belt, and we do currently see it in the prizes. Sorry, I do apologize, of course. You did mention the 9 bench Pokemon as well. Has just... Oh, of course, he's just... Is that just a Sharon's Care? Which is fantastic to actually play and just completely wiping out Zach's turn there from Kevin. Apologies, just again, as I just catching the action myself, which is fantastic. So Sharon's Care, being able to pick up your colorless Pokemon and actually just hold on to all the resources as well, which is fantastic.
And that's something we've seen a little bit with the Lost Origins meta, is players are looking to make their big attackers bulkier and also be able to heal them. We saw Cheryl being used a little bit in other regions, and with the colorless Pokemon, you get access to the Sharon's Care, allowing you to reset that damage, helping in situations like this where someone will look to finish off a Pokemon with bench sniping damage, especially with Sableye now being an option in Lost Box decks or in Giratina. You know, this is an amazing turn right now for Kevin to start off and being able to do that, as it's completely reset the game state and now put him in favor in that prize race.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Kevin wanted to see. He's used the damage pump as well to just reduce that damage on the active Hisuian Zoroark VStar, putting 1 damage counter on the Oranguru, again boosting up all that damage that's available to him. So now with that ticking curse attack, you know, 6 Pokemon with damage counters on it, that does mean it's 6 times 50, you've got 300 damage. It will be taking a further 2 prizes on Zach's board, and there he is. We do see the attack there, a further 2 prizes. That brings Kevin down now to 3 prizes remaining with Zach 6 to go, and that's one Palkia V-Star gone.
Yeah, well, the V-Star has the ability to quickly surge water energy into that. We also have a Melanie available. So I'm not concerned right now for Zach's ability to attack, but again, it's that concern over the prize difference. With Kevin going first, it was favorable until that first turn. We were a bit concerned over the ability to get ahead in the prize race, and just missing a beat there from Zach in that last turn, not quite able to find the damage needed to get the knockout. Sharon's Care really leveling the playing field. So this first game, Kevin will be feeling a lot more confident now, settled in. The nerves will start to dissipate, because that's definitely the first part of the game is when you're most nervous, right?
100%, and you know, just being able to take such a pretty commanding lead at this point. You know, he's already starting to think about maybe his prize mapping in terms of the rest of his prizes, his 3 prizes. So, you know, he's going to be aiming to take out this big Palkia V-Star in the active position, the origin form there. And then it's just 1 more prize remaining. And, you know, there's a lot of little Pokemon on Zach's board. And as you can see, we're starting to see Zach there go through the shady dealings. Chaining that we've typically seen in a lot of these decks now. You know, just as we've seen Drizzles and Inteleons and Sobbles play out not just in Palkia, we've seen it in Arceus as well. Such a powerful card, a powerful ability to be using going forward. And
looking at the history of the Lost Origin meta, this is one of Hisuian Zoroark's worst matchups. So the fact that that first game could go in favor, you know, with a best of 3, that could be massive. Game 2, the coin flip choice will go in favor of Zach, so that will be a tougher match to win and can play a bit more aggressively there and try and get that win. But for now, that first game is vital in an unfavorable matchup to try and get ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And Zach there is just making sure he doesn't want to put damage counters on his side of the board either, so grabs his training court, of course, now uses that V-Star ability to sort of, as you mentioned, surge water energies onto the board there so that he's prepping up his attackers. It is that Star Portal ability, of course, so being able to attach free water energies from your discard pile. We've seen him already, you know, use concealed cards. He's lost 2 energies from the active Palkia. And there's the Big Charm, which, as you mentioned, as players are starting to think about the meta, now starting to make their Pokemon far bulkier, far tankier than usual. So this is really interesting play by Zach here, of course. Now we hand it back over after just taking the return KO.
Now that's really useful in a lot of matchups, but this matchup is the one where the opponent has the ability to knock out V-Maxes in 1 hit. You know, Hisuian Zoroark V-Star able to knock out most Pokemon in the meta right now. Has to get that full bench, has to get damage everywhere, may need the one of the 2 choice belts as well. But that Big Charm's not going to be doing too much. That's going to put the Palkia up to 310 hit points, which is well within the range of a Hisuian Zoroark V-Star.
Yeah, just looking to maybe just grab that choice belt to be able to burst into the actual damage range of that Origin Form Palkia V-Star in the active position there. Does have that great card with the air balloon attached to that Oranguru, giving himself a pivot whilst Kevin sort of assesses his options. He looks like he's just Evo Incense, possibly grabbing out one of those Gengars, which we haven't seen hit the field yet. But of course, he does have that stadium out now as well, having already bumped that training court. He's looking in a pretty good spot here. So just needing to now finally find the final few pieces just to kind of get that KO.
Yeah, that choice belt is going to be the thing to look for now. And the difference here with the decks is Hisuian Zoroark V-Star is going to need to search by drawing. And the search on the opposite side with the Inteleon line is a lot more direct. You can find exactly what you need as long as you find a Shady Dealings card.
Yeah,
but right now, research. That's one way to dig for sure.
Yeah, there were two options there, of course. Kevin identifying if he's able to find this choice belt, and I'm not too sure. I did see it. Does have further opportunity to go through into the deck with that trekking shoes in hand as well. But doesn't look like he's hit his choice belt so far. So be really interested to see how he plays this now. Of course, he was already going through the deck with other cards to be able to pull it out of the deck to try and maximize that percentage to try and draw into it. Of course, it's not prized, so we believe there should still be 2 choice belts in his deck. I don't believe I've seen him discard it, or he may have discarded one from the ability earlier. But it'll be interesting to see how Kevin navigates this now. So it's just obviously taking that Radiant Hawlucha, not useful in this matchup, of course, because it's sort of ramping up damage for the VMAX opposition, like the Kyurem VMAX that we typically have seen in the metagame at the moment. But he's obviously just taking cards out of his deck, just getting ready to use Trekking Shoes to increase his percentages to try and grab that vital card, last card. Yeah,
every bit of thinning might matter here. So gets an Ultra Ball off the first one, is going to discard it. Will he get the choice belt? And doesn't look to, gets a damage pump. So we mentioned about how he needs to hit every beat now to stay ahead, and that's the challenge with this deck. And we mentioned the VStar ability from Hisuian Zoroak VStar is so key to help you dig later on in the game, but had to use it early on to start getting things in place.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have that extra dig potential now. With the research and the trekking shoes and a bit of thinning, not quite able to hit the damage required to knock out this big charmed Palkia. So in the end, it was enough. We said it was potential to hit that, but it just added one more piece that was needed for Kevin here to get the knockout.
And this is very likely giving Zach an opportunity now to pull himself fully back into the game. Of course, having taken 2 prizes on his last turn, knocking out that active Hisuian Zoroak V-Star. Now just taking the damage, and this is kind of putting Zach in a position where he could take the lead, and then now Zach is actually identifying his prize mapping. He'll be looking to try and take out the active Zoroark here, and then it's just, hopefully, from his view, an easy 2-prizer. Maybe that Crobat on the bench is looking tasty for Palkia V-Star.
And that's why this matchup's so hard for Zoroark against Palkia, because there's so many questions the Palkia deck can ask. Can you knock me out with a big charm? Can you avoid filling up your bench? And most of them adds too much for Zoroark to hit. And on this occasion, we did see the big charm come through. Unfortunate for Kevin not to hit those choice belts, especially while ahead. But this is going to be a tough match for Kevin, and I'm sure he'll be looking forward to facing off different decks where he's got a much more favorable matchup. And that's just part of Pokemon, right? Is you play a long day of SwSh, and sometimes there's certain decks you just don't want to face, and this is going to be starting the day against a good player playing a deck that's strong against you.
Yeah, so it's going to be, you can't cater for everything. You cater for the decks that you would love to see, of course, and that's why maybe Kevin is playing this deck, because he's been potentially playing it for a while now. He's comfortable with the deck. You'll make less mistakes if you're playing a deck and have experience with. And here we're starting to see Zach just kind of begin to pop off here. I believe that is the quick shooting Inteleon with the ability used token just on top of it there as well. He's now, there's that, of course, with the extra bench space that's not currently on Kevin's side. He needs to continue just kind of ramping up that damage there.
Yeah. Don't want to see what happens early on where he missed the knockout and the Sharon's Care came through. The Pal Pad did get discarded as part of that dig earlier from Kevin, so I don't know if we're going to be seeing that Sharon's Care again. But of course, the Palkia needs to get that damage modifier. Normally, you'd look to go for the choice belt, but as it's prized, we're going to have to look to do it through maybe a scoop up net on the Zigzagoon and use that headbutt tantrum again. But in this case, he said the quick shooting Inteleon is an option, and that can get 20, and then if you scoop it up, you might be able to get a second 20, and that should be enough to get the Zoroark, which has already got 2 damage counters on it, helping the damage needed.
And I think Zach's just been eyeing up his echoing horn there from the Drizzle, and I believe that's what he's taken.
Oh, that'd be more damage.
Yep, so he's just, again, looking for that opportunity to ramp up his damage from his side. Of course, has that active Origin Form Palkia V-Star with that charm. Of course, with the belt still in the prizes, he's just going to have to kind of force other ways of sort of ramping up that damage there as well. From that Irida that's still on the board, just kind of just for everyone to see, he did grab that other Origin form, Palkia VStar, and has just evolved up to that as well. So he's just setting up his board ready to just continue maybe return KOing. What we're likely to see as well, typically, from Zach's side, he's going to be taking those bottom 2 prizes. And
looks like a scoop here.
Yeah, there you go. And the writing was on the wall from Kevin, so has decided to.
What a roller coaster, though.
To our feature match now, we're just seeing both players go back to getting ready for our game 2. Looks like Zach is set up, and looks like there's just a mulligan from Kevin's side there, with Zach just adding that 1 on top of his deck there.
Just from your experience, what's it like playing on the feature table compared to playing in the hall?
We've touched on it a little bit. There is a lot of added pressure, like I mentioned, there's a lot of eyes on you here. You typically might have that white noise going through. I believe, hopefully we've kind of catered for the players now. There might be a little bit of music there instead to just kind of get them into the zone. And as you can see, both players, just as we kind of very quickly go over to Kevin, who opens up game 2, and we're just having a quick look at the prizes there. Again, from both players, nothing, I wouldn't say nothing too crazy.
Maybe the damage pumps might be a bit harder to hit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, he does play the 4 of. So typically, we've already seen Zach, prize double battle VIP pass in game 1, and still have 2 in hand. So maybe not too much of an issue. That is the exact same starting situation for Kevin here. And Zach's board, he just doesn't look like he's got the best hands right here. He's going to have to play a Marnie, and actually just attaches the water to the Sobble, so he's going to be looking to keep calling.
And with this, what we mentioned, if it hits every beat, it should be fine, especially going first in this matchup. If it's able to knock out a V on that second turn by finding enough damage, by getting that boss potentially, then it's going to be in a really good spot to keep ahead in the prize race. What we saw last time is had to knock out a 1 prizer. That then starts asking the questions of how are you going to then take out another 3 Pokemon. As far as Zach's concerned, he's just going to try and set up as good as possible and play the consistency card, which is what Palkia Inteleon has done so well in the Lost Origin meta, being such a consistent deck that no matter what, you can hit every beat you need, knowing that your opponent is going to be the one who struggles, especially later on in the game, once you start asking those questions with things like Big Charm.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we're just seeing Zach there from that Marnie being able to get that quick ball, so he is able to get a Palkia down onto that bench there.
And he's got to keep calling set up there with that attachment. So we know that the V-Star ability to burst 3 energy into the play, the Star Portal, is always an option for Palkia.
This does put Zach in a little bit of a precarious position because it's just the 1 Palkia on the board now. Of course, he did Marnie Kevin, so Kevin will be working with a 4-card hand, 5 once he draws for his turn. But if there's that opportunity to then just get the stadium down, get all the combo pieces, get the Hisuian Zoroak V-Star, and just burst through, he may be able to actually target down that Palkia early on and just kind of limit Zach's board in terms of actually trying to take a return KO.
Yeah, it's tough based off of the hand Zach had. He didn't quite get a chance to see it, but this is a more aggressive approach, right? Just to put 1 V down, trust it is going to stick, and leave yourself with lots of options with the Sobble. Is that because he's 1-0 up right now?
I mean, it can be very situational. Of course, he had to Marnie that hand that he was holding on to. Unfortunately, he had no playable cards unless he wanted to scoop the game with a scoop up net with that lone Sobble that was in the active position. So it may have just been down to just what was available to him. And just looking at his hand, I didn't know if I saw an Irida there. Maybe be able to do something for the next turn, because then he could start chaining those Shady Dealings Drizzles. But like I said, ideally you want to, especially against a matchup against like Zoroak, which is taking KOs very quickly, bursting through without often too many issues. Getting the second one down as an insurance policy is something that Zach would have wanted to try and do there. But he has to play to his hand.
Yeah, has to play to his hand, has a game in hand, so can quickly think about the third round if things start going wrong. But at this stage, like you said, didn't have the strongest opener, and a lot now on Kevin to try and find this knockout. Has to fill the bench, get damage in all of the bench. So doesn't really want to start filling that bench until the Gapejaw Bog comes out, especially as we know that damage pumps aren't available, so there's not as many options to spread that damage around. So it's not just about finding the pieces, it's about finding the pieces in the right order.
Yeah.
And going to start off here potentially with that Crobat. We do have the VStar ability from Zoroak available if needed to discard and draw 7.
He has already played the Chorus Experiment, which is why we now see the Lost Zone cards just there. Looks like the Palpad and maybe one of the Ordinary Rods in that position as well. So won't be looking or won't be able to sort of target that Palkia VStar as much as he would have liked to, but has just very quickly Ultra Balled and Quick Balled away to grab that Crobat as well, and also grabbing a Manaphy, it looks like, from his additional Ball Search. Yeah,
and getting rid of those recovery cards at this stage. He just wants to get a knockout now, doesn't think about anything else. If they get that knockout on a Sobble, it takes away some energy, which will go into the discard for the V-Star ability, but it just wants to start the rhythm now, and without the ability to boss, it might be a bit tough here for Kevin in the prize race, and that's like what we said about the Palkia, right? You do have to get ahead in that race because the consistency of the deck, once the Sobbles are down, is always very tough. It's always the question of, can you get that first hand sorted? And yes, it wasn't ideal, only one Palkia, but to get so many options through the Shady Dealings now will quickly spiral into control for Zach. Manaphy not really needed in this matchup because Greninja can't take too many knockouts. Might be able to finish stuff off, but not the biggest threat in this matchup.
No, definitely. And I think Kevin there, we saw a little bit of body language. I don't think Kevin's in the best of stages from this situation. Does get another Zoroark down with the DTE attached. Will be using that Phantom Star V-Star ability to discard
the boss in hand, but with the Colress he had to get everything, so couldn't play the full risk of gusting the Palkia into the active spot. Needed too much to make that a possibility.
No, needs to use his damage pump here to be able to actually take the knockout on the little Sobble because he was only doing 50 damage. Of course, minus the 20 from the double turbo energy as well. So did need 2 Pokemon with damage counters on it. So we do see one of the double damage pumps played there. Yeah, I think from Kevin's side, he's just wanting to just apply as much pressure to Zach's board. You know, you're forcing Zach into positions where he has to now start to return. Unfortunately for Kevin, he's had to fully bench his board as well and put Zach in a position where he just top decks an Ultra Ball. But like I mentioned, I think I did see that Irida in hand. It just means he starts to have a lot of combo pieces there and then already as well.
Yeah, we see the no damage on the active Zoroark there, so we will need to see some kind of damage modifier. It can't be the quick shooting Inteleon at this stage. It will have to either be a Goon Ping with the Zigzagoon Headbutt Tantrum, or we'll need to see the Choice Belt come out. Either of those options are searchable through Shady Dealings, but it's whether other stuff is needed at this stage. And I think energy attachment is the biggest question right now, and the Capacious Bucket coming out.
Yeah, he does have that quick shooting in hand. Of course, doesn't play the rare candy to kind of burst up into that damage so quickly, but we're now just having a look, Zach, here. He doesn't have too many cards in hand. So in terms of like getting all those combo pieces, you know, he's getting that Irida. I think he's chosen that Capacious Bucket and now changed his mind from the Drizzle because he needs to draw more cards. He needs more cards in hand to use that Ultra Ball because, you know, certain pieces that he doesn't want to be discarding. I believe it was a cross switcher in hand as well, which we haven't seen from Zach in game 1. Being able to play both of those to switch your active and your opponent's active and target down, you know, the Pokemon he wants to, when he needs to, is a fantastic card that we've seen in a lot of combo decks. So Zach here having to just kind of play a little bit more potentially reserved in some ways because he's just going to have to draw a lot of cards and see what he kind of gets into at that point.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to discard the Water Energy anyway, so may as well draw 2 cards with it, but it does take away one of the Drizzle potentials that he was going to get from that Irida. So very reliant on top decking through these 2 draws, something useful. And there's lots of options. There's loads of outs. It could be a Drizzle. It could be a search for a Drizzle. It could be the card he's looking for.
Looks like a Scoop Up Net and another Irida. So there's an option to Scoop Up Net the Radiant Greninja and then use its Conceal Cards ability for a second time in a turn. Of course, only plays the 2 copies of Scoop Up Net. We've seen, you know, generally quite low counts of this card, even though it's such a powerful card in these kind of types of combo decks to like chain those Drizzles. I think it looks like now from the concealed cards has started to hit some really good cards. I did see a Choice Belt there. Does have the Evo Incense as well. So we're just looking to see what Zach goes for here. He does get the Origin Form, Hisuian, Palkia, VStar.
And that's the key here. We need to get that Palkia VStar running, and we also need to get some Drizzles on the go. So there's a lot of crossover there with the outs. We saw Evo Incense used, and Zach will be thinking ahead, what do I need? Do I need to get the Drizzle to chain into it so I can start thinking about damage modifiers in the future? So a lot of thinking ahead going on right now for Zach. As we mentioned, he is one game up, so can play a little bit more aggressive, can play a bit more risky, knowing that he can go first in that final game and close it out. The first game did go by pretty quickly, but we are starting to see time be a factor, so that's going to be coming into Zach's mind as to what he's thinking about. And at this stage, he's carrying on because he believes he can win this game, and that's purely down to the prize race. We mentioned that one prize being taken for Palkia and Inteleon is not too much of a concern because they still need to knock out 3 Pokemon. And with the only attacker on the side of Kevin being a V-Star, so 2 prize Pokemon, the potential to knock out 3 of those in return is likely. So Zach committing to game 2 here, knows it's a good matchup, so gets that the V-Star ability, the Star Portal comes out, bursting that water energy onto the scene that he got earlier from the concealed card. So you can see how the deck can quickly level itself up into a strong position. And that knockout does look like it's going to be possible here.
Yeah, also has the choice belt to be able to ramp up all that damage. You know, Zach getting full value there from the Star Portal ability, getting all 3 attachments. Didn't get a from-hand attachment, so could have seen the additional water if he had one there. But, you know, if I'm in Zach's position, you're not going to be complaining. You have taken the prize lead. You are prize mapping through your final 4 prizes as well. It's going to be trying to take out one more Hisuian, Zoroak, V-Star. And then, again, as I mentioned, that Crobat. Always looking tasty when it's such low in terms of HP.
And based off the body language of that scoop up that second concealed cards, I don't think Zach believed he was getting the knockout there and was hoping the cards would come through for him. They did in the end. He knew he had the energy. He knew he had a lot of outs to get it, but did get the route to the knockout. Now Kevin's going to have to just hope we see something similar to earlier, which is the knockout missed from Zach, because otherwise right now, if both continue at the rhythm they are now, this game will go in favour of Zach, and as we mentioned, that's why Zach is committing to this game, knows he's still in favour. A player like Zach, who's played many tournaments, knows the time's a factor, knows that game 2, if you're ahead, is a risky play. You just try and make it happen, and then if it doesn't work, scoop, go game 3. So the confidence here from Zach that he can finish this off is why we're still here.
Yeah, I think Zach would have known also that he has a slightly favourable matchup here because of just being able to take 2 prize knockouts when he needs to. We do see from Kevin's side of the board now just playing that Gape Chore Bog, sorry, and also looks like he is playing. Is that just another? Just confirming the sort of the damage that's coming down now onto his board. Of course, he's needing to try and ramp up his damage as much as he can, hoping there's an opportunity to not be return KO'd as well. Likely to maybe expect that Zach doesn't play more than 1 choice belt, so the ramping up of damage may be a little bit lower. So it's just because he has seen a big charm, of course, so you start to kind of slowly figure things out. Right now, Kevin's side of the board has 4 Pokemon with damage counters on, so he is hitting at 200 minus the 20 from the DTE attached to the active Zoroark as well. So still needs a little bit more to keep going.
And I'm not quite sure where that damage is going to come from. So he's in a bit of a challenging position now. There is 2 damage counters on the Hawlucha that could potentially be moved around with a damage pump. As we know, there's 2 in the prizes, so it's going to be a tough find and a tough ask. And I think that's going to be the only thing Kevin's thinking about right now is how on earth am I going to get this knockout? Well, getting
there you go.
the lower HP V Pokemon will definitely help, having that 220 HP to hit. So only needs to move that 1 damage off the Hawlucha to another Pokemon, and I assume he's going to try and keep the active as clean as possible. It's such a tough position for him right now.
Yeah, I think it's just unfortunate. He has just had to announce the attack from his Zoroark, that ticking curse, dealing that 180 damage to that active Palkia V. Now just trying to maybe find a way to just give himself an opportunity to really stay in the game.
You said there was no manual attachment last turn. I'm sure Kevin thought that and thought, well, maybe he might not be able to get the second attachment on his Palkia, maybe not be able to retreat, something like that. But of course, the capacious bucket coming off the prizes for Zach. So there is an energy there and we'll see it'll be a concealed cards opportunity. There's so many ways now to find the knockout with the active even, let alone having to retreat to find that bench Pokemon. But then that's when the damage modifiers start coming in, which we mentioned. Now we're a turn later, quick shooting is now an option.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate Kevin wasn't able to ramp up the damage, of course, because he's also not sort of removing that choice belt from play.
Yeah,
just means that it's just, it's always threatening him or threatening his board, I should say, from Zach's side of the game. So currently Zach, again, just continuing to, dominate from his commanding position at the moment, I'd like to say. Just getting all the sort of shady dealings. He has shady dealing. He's just concealed cards. He's just waiting for the cut from Kevin there. Just having a quick look to see what Zach has been able to draw from that. And here we go. So now we get a chance to see from Zach's hand as well all the movements. And just Melanie to the active position.
Yeah, that draw from the Melanie, and you got the level ball. That's going to allow for more search. So the route to victory is surely here for Zach, and he's definitely checking now to make sure those options are available. So he's taken all the steps when searching there in the deck, which is definitely the smart way to go, just to check before you start going through the line of play. You want to make sure the full line is there available. And this is going to be a route to getting that Palkia VStar down. So great play from Zach here. And we mentioned about this being the feature table opportunity here. Zach's done his fair share of feature tables, and for Kevin, this will start off his day in an interesting way. This is going to be a frustrating thing. You go on the feature table, you take a loss, especially one where you probably felt like you could have won that first game, and you're going to be thinking, oh, it's not my day. He's got to bounce back from that and play the rest of the SwSh starting on that loss potentially if this carries on as expected.
Yeah, so because with Zach coming, retreating with that Palkia that was brought up to the active position from that boss, and now putting the active choice belt Palkia VStar, being able to take the knockout here. Yep, again, going down to 2 prizes, taking out another 2 prize Pokemon. Just puts Kevin in a little bit of an even more sticky situation. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's unfortunate that he just missed that choice belt, because that would have put himself in such a commanding position. That would have put Kevin in a 1-0 from the first game. That would have put more pressure on Zach. And then from that stage, Zach might have been playing maybe a little bit quicker, trying to just give himself the best opportunity to use the time to go to a game 3 as well.
Exactly.
But it's just, a little bit unfortunate, but Kevin just has to pick himself up, dust himself off, knows this was a bad matchup, and I think Kevin there seen the writing on the wall, extended his hand, and just conceded that game 2.